for Prime Minister's Office, Pensions, Department of Atomic Energy and Department of Space. Please welcome with a loud applause Dr. Jitendra Singh. Former Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, the very erudite Professor K. Vijay Raghavan. Thank you for joining us. Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, Professor A.K. Sood. We are indeed delighted to have you here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I request you to clap with spirited abandon. This is the Science Day. Our pleasure to have with us Secretary DST, Dr. S. Chandrasekhar. You make us proud Indians. Head NCSTC, Dr. Anjan Banik. Many thanks, sir, for joining us and sharing. We welcome the esteemed dignitaries on the dais by offering them potted plants. I request Dr. S. Chandrasekhar to present the same to the Honorable Minister. Science Day है, जोरदार तालियां होनी चाहिए. Dr. Anjan Banik will give to Professor Vijay Raghavan. Dr. Nakul Parasha, I request you to present the same to Professor A.K. Sood. Dr. Anjan Banik will give to Dr. S. Chandrasekhar. And Dr. Nakul Parasha will give to Dr. Anjan Banik. Sir. समस्याओं, okay, it's a repeat. समस्याओं के समाधान का हल पाओगे यदि विज्ञान की ताकत को समझ जाओगे. On behalf of the Ministry of Science and Technology and Vigyan Prasar, I also welcome Joint Secretaries, Heads of the Department of Science and Technology, all distinguished officers of other departments, scientists, all officers of DST, Vigyan Prasar, and other scientific institutions, all friends from the wonderful media. Thank you for being here, and of course, our wonderful audience. It is my privilege to extend a very warm welcome to you on this occasion of National Science Day. I'll just take 2 minutes because this, I feel, ladies and gentlemen, is very important to India's worldview. And I say this from my heart. There are decades when nothing happens, and weeks and decades happen, and this was the most frequently shared code this year, quite rightly so. This year changed our perception of time. It showed us the flip side. I'm sure you know I'm referring to the war and other global events. With the new year, every Indian is proud of India's scientists for the phenomenal achievements made in various fields, from agriculture to health to space. So today, let's put our hands together for the Ministry of Science and Technology. I now request our tech team to play a film on a National Science Day. I request the audience to please align towards the screen.
फरवरी के दिन ही भारत के मशहूर वैज्ञानिक सर सीवी रमन ने रमन प्रभाव की खोज की घोषणा की थी. ये खोज दुनिया भर के कई वैज्ञानिक अनुप्रयोगों का आधार बन गई. इस उपलब्धि को एक यादगार के तौर पर याद रखने के लिए 28 फरवरी को भारत के राष्ट्रीय विज्ञान दिवस के रूप में घोषित किया गया. ये दिन लोगों और देश की युवा पीढ़ी तक विज्ञान के महत्व को पहुंचाने का माध्यम बन गया. विज्ञान एवं प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग के अंतर्गत राष्ट्रीय विज्ञान एवं प्रौद्योगिकी संचार परिषद द्वारा ये कार्यक्रम पूरे देश में स्कूलों, कॉलेजों, विश्वविद्यालयों और अन्य संस्थानों में मनाया जाता है और विज्ञान के क्षेत्र में सभी गतिविधियों, प्रयासों और उपलब्धियों को प्रदर्शित किया जाता है। राष्ट्रीय विज्ञान दिवस 2023 को वैश्विक कल्याण के लिए वैश्विक विज्ञान थीम दिया गया है। आजकल चुनौतियां वैश्विक स्तर की हैं, जिनके समाधान भी वैश्विक सहयोग से ही मिल सकते हैं। हर देश को अपने साथ साथ वैश्विक स्थिति को नजर में रखते हुए काम करने की जरूरत को महसूस किया जा रहा है और इसी थीम के अनुसार विभिन्न गतिविधियों का आयोजन किया जा रहा है। देश आजादी के 75 वर्षों का जश्न मना रहा है और अब अमृत काल में प्रवेश कर चुका है। ये अवसर हर वैज्ञानिक उपलब्धि और योगदान को उजागर कर उसे एक यादगार बनाने का है। विभिन्न संचार माध्यमों के द्वारा विज्ञान के लोकप्रियकरण प्रयासों को मान्यता देने और उत्कृष्ट प्रयासों को सम्मानित करने के लिए हर साल राष्ट्रीय पुरस्कार प्रदान किए जाते हैं। आज इस अवसर पर यहाँ विज्ञान संचार के क्षेत्र में 2022 के राष्ट्रीय पुरस्कारों का वितरण किया जा रहा है। इसमें विज्ञान एवं प्रौद्योगिकी संचार में पुस्तकों और पत्रिकाओं सहित प्रिंट के माध्यम से विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी संचार में, बच्चों के बीच विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी लोकप्रियकरण में, लोकप्रिय विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी साहित्य का भारत के संविधान की 8वीं अनुसूची में उल्लिखित भाषाओं में और अंग्रेजी में अनुवाद, नवोन्मेषी और पारंपरिक पद्धतियों के माध्यम से, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया के माध्यम से विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी संचार में उत्कृष्ट प्रयासों के लिए राष्ट्रीय पुरस्कार शामिल हैं। इस मौके पर साल 2022 के लिए PhD और पोस्ट डॉक्टोरल फेलो के लिए लोकप्रिय विज्ञान कहानी लिखने वाले शोधकर्ताओं को अवसर ट्रॉफी से भी सम्मानित किया जा रहा है। इस अवसर पर विभिन्न विज्ञान प्रकाशकों का विमोचन भी किया जा रहा है। देश में विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी पारिस्थितिकी तंत्र ने पिछले 8.5 वर्षों में देश के लिए दूरगामी प्रभाव वाले कई नए ऐतिहासिक सुधारों की शुरुआत करके तेजी से प्रगति की है और भारत औद्योगिकरण और तकनीकी विकास में एक वैश्विक नेता बनने की दिशा में लगातार आगे बढ़ रहा है। G20 की अध्यक्षता इसका एक सफल उदाहरण है। आइए विज्ञान के इस उत्सव का आनंद मनाएं।
ये था नया भारत साइंस द्वारा। आप सभी से मुझे एक सवाल पूछना है, कैसे बन रहा है ये नया भारत? क्या सचमुच एक नया भारत बन रहा है? तो जी हाँ, इस नए भारत को बना रहे हैं इंडिया के साइंटिस्ट, आप सभी। थैंक यू फॉर दिस फिल्म एंड आई रिक्वेस्ट द टेक टीम टू स्विच ऑफ द लाइट्स व्हेन द नेक्स्ट फिल्म इज प्लेड। I now request the Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Dr. S. Chandrasekhar, to address the audience and share his vision about the relevance of the National Science Day. Please join me in welcoming to the lectern, Dr. S. Chandrasekhar.
Honorable Minister for Science and Technology, Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, Professor Sood, Professor Vijay Raghavan, Mohanty, all the friends in the audience today, greetings to all of you on this important National Science Day. It's my privilege and honor to welcome all of you for these celebrations at Vigyan Bhavan. We can proudly proclaim that science and technology has been an integral part of a rich and diverse civilization and culture since time immemorial. On this platform, I would like to sincerely thank our Honorable Minister for suggesting us the theme of this year, Global Science for Global Well-being, keeping in view the G20 presidency we got. Thank you so much, sir. The National Science Day is celebrated, as all of us are aware, on this day when Sir C.V. Raman has discovered the Raman effect. Celebrations of important scientific days is very important, especially for our young school minds who are sitting in the back rows. It's very important that they inculcate the culture of science at the very early life. Many institutions organize open houses for their laboratories and appraise students about career opportunities available in science and technology. Also, we have a dedicated department, National Council for Science and Technology Communication, which has been supporting various programs for science promotion through state S&T councils. Ministry of Science and Technology cover a very large canvas of R&D from deep ocean to mystery of universe. Our range encompasses grassroots innovators to top class of scientists. Our activities impact right from a farmer in a remote corner of the country to sophisticated industries such as space. To cater to such a large audience, we also need to have adequate resources, and we are happy that DST has got enhanced budget this year. The investments in science and technology endeavor and new thrust given to several initiatives which directly benefit the common man has translated into prosperity and general welfare of the masses. Therefore, the science and technology has a critical role to play in creating Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is ready for the future. Not only are we taking science to people and making it popular, but we are also recognizing the efforts of scientists, especially the science communicators who are engaged in the process. The department has also instituted many awards which will be presented today on this auspicious day. In addition to these awards, we are also going to release few special publications, including Women Engineers in India, Volume 1, Compendium on the Landmark Achievements, Engineering and Technology in Independent India, INA Report of Committee on Technological Preparedness for Dealing with National Disruptions, Compendium of Avsar Selected Popular Science Stories for the year 2021, and Vigyan Vidushi, 75 Women Trailblazers of Science. The theme of the National Science Day, as mentioned, Global Science for Global Wellbeing, certainly is an important title for all of us as we celebrate G20 this year. I'm also happy that former Secretary, Department of Biotechnology and former PSA, Dr. Vijay Raghavan, has accepted to deliver today's National Science Day lecture. Of course, public awareness during this India presidency of G20 is very critical, and I welcome all of you to see that how the G20 message goes across the school children also. Thank you. Jai Hind.
बहुत धन्यवाद सर, आपने अपने विचार साझा किए और हम सभी को प्रोत्साहित किया. I now request Professor A.K. Sood, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, to address the audience and share his vision. Please join me in welcoming to the lectern Professor A.K. Sood.
Honorable Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, Professor Vijay Raghavan, Professor S. Chandrasekhar, Dr. Mohanty, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a day of celebration of science, which has touched and shaped our lives over so many years in all aspects. This year's theme, as given by our Honorable Minister, Global Science for Global Well-being, is significant for India in its years, in the year of its presidency of G20, and we strive for innovation and science and technology to benefit the entire planet. We all know that India has made significant strides in scientific research and development, and our scientists have made numerous contributions to the world. Science is a powerful tool that can transform the world and improve people's life everywhere. It is crucial, without any doubt, that we work together to address global challenges such as climate change, poverty, and disease, and so on, and harness the power of science and technology to find solutions that benefit all humanity. As this is the year of G20 India's presidency, we plan an agenda to advance science and provide collective leadership for global science advice. We are committed to working with G20 members and other countries to drive scientific progress for the betterment of all. We know that science, technology, innovation, and education are the 4 pillars of equal strength on which a nation stands. We often have a discussion whether it is basic science or applied science, but looking at today's event to celebrate the Raman effect, if you realize when Sir C.V. Raman started on this curiosity that what could be the equivalent of Compton effect, which was announced few years before this discovery. He wanted to see if there is a electromagnetic counterpart to the Compton effect, and years of work, almost 6 years of work, led to this discovery, which is named after him. There were lots of hurdles with very limited funding, where one had to decipher whether it is the Raman signal, which we now call Raman signal, or the photoluminescence. And that itself took number of years, very, very hard work to come to this stage. So what we need to realize is today's basic science will be tomorrow's technology. You are all carrying GPS in your pockets. I am sure there will not be a single person in the hall who will not have a mobile. But do you recognize that without general theory of relativity, you would not be using the GPS accurately? So that you can see the power of science. Of course, cyber security, which is so essential for our digital transaction, for which India is known, would not have happened because of, but for the basic mathematics like algebraic geometry and so on. Raman effect started with a curiosity, and it has been used in basic science to decipher the vibrational signatures, the magnetic signatures, electronic signatures, and so on of solids, and more recently on topological excitations, which is where the quantum frontier is opening up. And India has announced, or is going soon to announce, a big quantum mission in this direction. At the same time, now we know that Raman effect is used in almost all branches of applied science, be it label-free diagnostic, drug discovery, be it material discovery. Semiconductor industry would not be making so much progress but for the Raman signatures of the materials, catalysis, and so on. So all this tells us that we need to move on all fronts: fundamental science, basic science, technology, innovation, and all of them put together to take our country forward. I would like to stress that science needs no boundary. It is a global endeavor that requires collaboration and cooperation from scientists around the world. As we celebrate National Science Day and reflect on the theme, Global Science for Global Well-being, let us commit ourselves for working together to create a brighter, healthier, and more prosperous future for all the generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and I love that last word. Let us deep dive and introspect, ladies and gentlemen. Are we actually doing enough? 75 years of independent India. माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का जो सपना है एक विकसित, एक विकासशील भारत का, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी के थ्रू आगे बढ़ सकता है. We have miles to go before we sleep, said Robert Frost. And these lines now echo in my mind today. Let us, you and I, take a pledge to make science and technology onwards and upwards. And I want to clap on that. I now request Honorable Minister to release the publications. But let me, years before that, why are we here today? What are these publications about? The Compendium on Women Engineers in India, Volume 1, is a unique document of its kind and was prepared under the aegis of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations by the collective efforts of the Fellows of Indian National Academy of Engineering and, of course, Vigyan Prasar. It is envisaged that this book will encourage many young, impressionable minds to choose engineering as a career option and assumes importance as gender parity is vital to accelerate economic growth. And Honorable Minister, on that note, something that must be raised in Parliament, only 22% seats for women even now, not only in India but globally. Can the women clap on that? Now, the compendium on landmark achievements in engineering and technology in independent India was also prepared under the aegis of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations by the fellows of INAE. The 75 engineering achievements showcased in this book were chosen based on criteria pertaining to benefit to the country's significance, impact, contribution, uniqueness, and novelty, and technological leadership that made a difference to the quality of life and technological progress of the nation. The book showcases engineering success that will inspire all of us. Again published by Vigyan Prasad. The INA report of a Committee on Technological Preparedness for dealing with national disruptions, again under the aegis of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, INAE decided to take up a study on technology preparedness for dealing with national disasters of various kinds, as these cause a huge damage to human life and property. A peer committee and expert committee, weather, ocean, geological health, cybersecurity, fire, and the report details the exercise of understanding the sources and nature of such disasters, which would perhaps make India better prepared to face such man-made disasters. Please clap. Book number 3. Afsar. Afsar in the true sense, according to me, is an opportunity to take what happens in the labs and minds of young prodigies and young millennia. A compendium of Afsar selected popular science stories for the year 2021 by the scientists for the people. Afsar stories, right. But before that, we have a Vigyan Vidushi, where we are showcasing 75 women trailblazers of science. As the nation commemorated 75 years of independence and celebrated Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, there cannot be a better time to highlight the contribution of our women scientists. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for them. And Vigyan Prasad has been incessantly working on compiling biographies of such women scientists. Thank you, Nakul sir, and thank you, Vigyan Prasad. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I request the Honorable Minister to please sit down. And we now play a film. I request the tech team to please align and all of you to please take a look on your screens.
Vigyan Vidushi, 75 Women Trailblazers of Science, portrays the valuable contributions of 75 Indian women scientists as the nation commemorated Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, marking the 75 glorious years of progressive India and its rich history, and now entering into the Amrit Kal. These biographies vividly describe the contribution and struggle of these women scientists in developing the course of science in India.
Our Indian women scientists have made us proud. Vigyan Vidushi, a compendium of such 75 brilliant luminaries, is here for all of you. I'm sure everyone who reads it will emulate the path shown and created by these 75 brilliant women scientists of India.
It also highlights the personal lives of women scientists and the challenges they faced while chasing their dreams. This book also reflects how women have progressed with the nation in the last 75 years and what we must strive to become for women in science.
Choosing the 75 women was perhaps the most non-enviable task for all of us involved. For one name present in the compendium, there are 10 others who could have been included, who should have been included. We finally worked towards having a representative depiction across the decades, across the areas of science, and across the vast geographical expanse of a country like India. I've been told that those women whose names and whose stories are not present in this printed volume will be available on the web page in the days to come.
The book compiles many women pioneers, role models showcasing stellar achievements in STEM.
In the field of science, Indian women have come a long way since the dawn of independence. The relentless pursuit and determination with which Vidushis carved their paths simply shows their level of devoted towards science. This achievement is not overnight, and the journey was full of crests and troughs. The Vigyan Vidushi 75 Women Trailblazers of Science is an attempt to compile the life journey of Vidushis in a manner that not only catches the imagination of readers and makes them engrossed in every biography, but also inspires the young blood in science to carve their way with confidence.
They are a source of inspiration for young women in science and would keep inspiring for years to come. The list of these 75 women trailblazers is not exhaustive of the outstanding contributions to science. Vigyan Prasar proposes to bring out more editions of Vigyan Vidushi in the coming times.
So this is a heads up for women power. Please pick your book today from Vigyan Prasar. We now go on to the next category where we recognize outstanding efforts in the area of science popularization and communication. The awards are given in 6 categories. Ladies and gentlemen, keep putting your hands together. The first award in this category is National Award for Outstanding Efforts in Science and Technology, Communication, and this goes to Karnataka Science and Technology Academy. I request A.M. Rameshji, Chief Executive Officer, KSTA, to please take the award from the Minister and all our esteemed dignitaries. National Award for Outstanding Efforts in Science and Technology Communication through print media, including books and magazines. Professor Mayadhar Swain, ex-director, School of Electrical Engineering, KIIT, Odisha, and Dr. Biju Dharampalan, India Science. Yes, Dr. Biju Dharampalan, can we have you here? Many congratulations. जोरदार तालियां हो जाए बीजू जी के लिए. He's also authored several books which are study material for various universities. The National Award for Outstanding Efforts in Science and Technology Popularization among Children, Category C, goes to Dr. Krishna Rao Appasani, General Secretary, Mental Illness and Neurological Disorders Foundation. Please read up on him. I think incredible work going on here. Work that is really required for India populace. The second award in this category goes to Dr. Uday Kumar Kakuru, Director, Millennium India Education Foundation, New Delhi. बहुत बहुत congratulations आपको. He is equipping the teachers with low-cost teaching techniques to teaching simpler for children. Vedic maths, wonderful. The citation, yes. National Award for Outstanding Efforts in Translation of Popular Science and Technology, Literature and Languages mentioned in the 8th schedule of the Constitution goes to Shri Tarun Kumar Jain, editor, Vaigyanik Drishtikon, Jaipur. A lot of work in editorial lines here. The National Award for Outstanding Efforts in Science and Technology Communication through Innovative and Traditional Methods, category E, goes to Shri Anjan Banik, Assistant Teacher, Agartala, all the way from Northeast. National Award for Outstanding Efforts in Science and Technology Communication in Electronic Medium goes to Shri Rakesh Andania, Science Editor, Science Filmmaker, News and Science, Science Monitor, Credence Media Solutions. A personal thank you here, Rakesh ji, for helping us out so many times. और अब उस अवसर की बारी जो हमें एक अपॉर्चुनिटी देता है for augmenting our skills. This initiative actually fosters, strengthens and creates scientific temper. After recognition for the first position in the PDF category, Dr. Amritesh Kumar, who's a postdoctoral researcher at the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. His research encompasses the development of novel magnetoelectric composites with enhanced magnetoelectric output. Dr. Kumar's popular science story, a magnetic field sensor, is the one that's got him the award. जोरदार तालियां हो जाए, especially when I flip pages. Neha Parashar, Ms. Neha Parashar is doctoral research scholar at the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Patna. I request Honorable Minister Sir to do the honors. Her popular science story entitled Flourishing Floors, a Plastic Wave, addresses the pressing issue of plastic pollution, something that is very important today. After recognition for second position under PhD category goes to Ms. Anis Fatima, who's a doctoral research scholar at the International Institute of Information Technology, Hyderabad. And her work revolves around the design and fabrication of flexible sensing systems for various applications. Breaking walls of chronic back pain, how today's sedentary lifestyle has caused this problem of back pain in adults. After recognition for second position under PhD category goes to Mr. Ankush Purushottam Wankhade, who's a doctoral research scholar at the Mahatma Phule Krishi Vidyapith, Rahuri, Maharashtra, working on genetic improvement for drought intolerance in groundnut. Using advanced genetic and genomic tools in collaboration with the International Crops Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropics, Hyderabad. Rohini B, a doctoral research scholar. The next award goes to Miss Rohini B, Food Engineering Department at CSIR, Mysuru. The main focus is valorization of agricultural residue. After recognition for the next award goes to Ms. Monica Pandey, Doctoral Research Scholar in Materials Engineering at the School of Engineering, Science and Technology, University of Hyderabad. Her popular science story, My Curious Cousins, talks about her research with her cousins. Something really worth reading. Her work in nano composites of silver, tin, and oxides. Thank you so much. May I request all of you to please be seated. I now request Dr. Jitendra Singh, Honorable Minister, Ministry of Science and Technology and Earth Sciences, Minister of State for Prime Minister's Office, Pensions, Department of Atomic Energy, and Department of Space, to share his vision for taking science to the masses of India and for his broad perspective on the same. Please join me in welcoming with a huge applause one of the most promising ministers of the Modi cabinet, Dr. Jitendra Singh. Can I request you to please come to the lectern, sir?
On the dais, Principal Scientific Advisor, Professor Sood, former PSA, Dr. Raghavan, Secretary DST, Dr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. Mohanty, Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, Dr. Ravi Chandran, former secretaries, eminent members of the scientific fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I must congratulate the recipients of these awards this morning, and I'm sure they must be looking forward to this National Science Day more than any one of us, because they are the ones who will be carrying home the award. But nevertheless, well deserved, and I'm sure you will keep it up even in the years to come. The National Science Day, as we observe every year, in fact, is an occasion for us to reiterate ourselves to the cause and to the goals that we have laid for ourselves. Right from the day, the inspiration came from none less than C.V. Raman, and therefore to commemorate his legacy and also try to live up to that legacy, if not wholly, at least partly, or to the extent that we can do. We've been observing this day since the year 1928. There have been landmarks after that. India, after independence, got its first science policy somewhere in 1953. Then, of course, the STI policy, etc., etc. But to cut the long story short, I think the vindication came in 2014. And being students of science, as we learned to speak with a certain amount of evidence, I sometimes feel that India had no dearth of potential, no dearth of capabilities, no dearth of focus of mind. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had someone like C.V. Raman. But after independence, I think what was lacking was prioritization. And prioritization at two levels, at the level of the policy planners, at the level of the political dispensation. And there, precisely, the difference happened with the arrival of someone like Modi. And after 2014, in the last 8 or 9 years, there has been a visible change in the political discourse, and there's an assertive shift of priorities. And as I was saying, we must never give up the habit of talking without evidence. I'm not sure as it would have occurred to anybody in this room. If you just look back at the 9 Independence Day addresses that have been delivered by Prime Minister Modi from the ramparts of the Red Fort, you'll find not a single one of these having gone without the mention of a premier scientific initiative or a program which was something unheard of, unparalleled in the history of independence India. Because the Independence Day address is actually a kind of a declaration of intent of the government in place. And there are many other lofty platitudes to be delivered. Just to cite this instance, In his first Independence Day address in 2014, he speaks about cleanliness. The most fundamental issue, which is related to hygiene, related to healthcare, and emphasizes Swachhata primarily so, declaring the intent of his government for the construction of the women toilets, realizing that one of the commonest causes of urinary tract disease in India was lack of toilet facility in the females or inadequate or insufficient facility. Besides, of course, the other diseases like diabetes, etc., where it happens for other reasons. So there was a kind of a sensitive reflection happening. And within 1 year, we had as many as 4 lakh female toilets built across the country in different schools and colleges. Because I'm saying so because this is often not talked about, often not discussed about, doesn't form a part of the TV discussion, and usually it slips our mind. In 2015, the same Prime Minister in the Independence Day address says, "Start up India, stand up India." I'm not sure how many would have understood. In fact, I also received calls in the evening and said, what does it actually mean? We didn't understand this because before that, we just had about 350 startups and nobody knew what is the definition of unicorn. Is it C-O-R-N or C-O-N? You recall, you'll realize what I'm saying is the truth, whether we accept it or not. In just 8-9 years, we've gone to 90,000 plus startups. We are number 3 startup ecosystem. We have so many unicorns. It's become such a familiar phrase amongst the common society, even outside the scientific fraternity. In his subsequent Independence Day address, he speaks of digital India. Now just try to look at the Independence Day address contents of the Prime Minister. And digital India soon ends up in digital bank accounts, in the DBT, which later on became handy when money had to be placed in the accounts of those who were suffering from inadequacy during the COVID times. You had the JAM, the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile trinity. You had the Gati Shakti. And all this followed that call for digital India. In another Independence Day address, I think it's 2017 or 18, for the first time, the announcement of Gaganyaan was made from the ramparts of Red Fort. It could have been done otherwise also. Or it could have just happened through a news story. But realizing the importance of a human being going into the space and raising India's esteem in the world community meant so much for everybody was to be realized by the importance given to it through an announcement, made an announcement from the Red Fort. In 2020, he talks of digital health mission. And the pandemic was just to strike. But we were prepared, and that's how we got over it. And in 2 subsequent Independence Day addresses, 2021 and 2022, both the addresses make a special mention of deep sea mission, being spearheaded by the Ministry of Earth Sciences. There was a time, not many years ago, when if you did a survey in India, in Delhi at least, and tried to ask the common persons walking along the footpath, where on earth is the Department of Earth Sciences located, I'm sure nobody would be able to tell. Here, Earth Sciences was receiving a mention from the Red Fort, realizing and making people realize in the years to come the immense wealth, health hidden inside the seabed, because with the longest sea coast of 7,500 kilometers, which has never been realized in the last 75, is actually going to add value to our economy when we say we are going to forge ahead in the next 25 years. And if you take some of the path-breaking initiatives, because I'm dealing with 6 or 7 departments this morning when I was coming here, I thought, let me try to recall each of the departments. In space, of course, it hardly needs to be told, it's a story in itself, the unlocking of space as was reported by the media. It worked behind a wheel of secrecy. 3 years back, it was thrown open. We have more than 130 startups. We are generating space economy to the tune that 220 million euros have been earned from European satellites launching, and as many as 56 or 57 million dollars earned from launching of American satellites. What an immense pride. We started off when America was about to land a human being on the surface of moon. We were singing Chanda Mama. Today, we are asking them to pay us for the services we are rendering. So we have actually risen ourselves. And this happened because the taboos of the past were broken up. The atomic energy, everybody thought some kind of an atom bomb happening inside. Today, atomic energy has become a means of increasing shelf life. We are carrying apple from Kashmir to all parts of all the mandis across India. And the academics of it, the Tata Memorial has suddenly found its satellite hospitals all across, far off in Guwahati, Northeast, Mohali, Punjab, Uttarakhand, Bihar. And I think the true vindication of what Homi Baba said, when he said our atomic energy, nuclear energy program is dedicated to peaceful purposes, and the whole world refused to trust him. They said he was trying to camouflage the atomic activity inside. Today, it is vindicated. We have actually translated it for applications which are closer to life. Similarly, deep sea mission, of course, I have already mentioned as far as the earth science is concerned. CSIR, the Aroma mission, the Purple Revolution, adding value to the startup movement by giving it what the component is known as the agri-tech startup, because somehow it had already stuck in our mind that startup meant IT. Because the wave started from Bangalore, the hub of IT, without realizing that our most vast resource of startup lies in the Himalayas. It doesn't require an IT background, doesn't even require a science graduation. And it has now picked up. I was glad only yesterday, Uttarakhand Chief Minister himself went out of the way to promote it after it's been already taken up by Germany. So we are actually contributing to the value addition of the startup movement of India. The autonomous vehicles, the waste to wealth, the drone, all these coming from CSIR. DST working in a host of areas, including the artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence being used not only in the IT sector, but also in the personnel management to decipher, to analyze the corruption cases. Can you imagine how much of potential was waiting to happen? It has happened in the last few years, because unless we say, we would not realize. And of course, the Department of Biotechnology is a story in itself which the world is celebrating. Today only there is a write-up in the Hindustan Times. India's vaccine yatra is actually a case study in itself. Now, if in 2 years we could come up with 4 vaccines, we could come up with the first ever DNA vaccine, we could come up with the first ever nasal vaccine, this does not mean that we started off only after the pandemic happened. It means that we were already there, just like waiting, on the lines to begin the marathon. But the referee was not pointing out the signal, the flag to run off. The moment the pandemic happened, the Prime Minister asked us to take off. You see what wonders have happened. In a country where preventive health care was least talked about, least known about, became an example or role model for the other countries. And we were not only developing vaccines, also providing to the other countries. And today, as was being mentioned by the PSA, when we thought of this theme for National Science Day this year, 2023, global science for global well-being, it was not simply to flatter ourselves or to be boisterous or to be self-righteous. I was trying to sum up the content of what has happened in the last. Today, actually, we are making the world realize the various facets of global well-being. You saw in those 2 years of pandemic, the Western practitioners of medicine who looked at indigenous systems or Indian systems with contempt were making frantic calls कि कोई booster है तो दीजिए. And this integrated holistic management has been accepted. And therefore global well-being, global science for global well-being, and it makes one proud to see that this globalization of science has to an extent begun from India, though we started off late. And therefore today, before I conclude, I would make you realize that the world is looking up to us. And is looking up to us because we have vindicated ourselves. We have vindicated ourselves with definite markers. In the Global Innovation Index, we have jumped from 81 to 40, all in the recent 3, 4, 5 years. In the publications, we have jumped from 6 to 3. In the startup ecosystem, we have emerged number 3. But I said in 2015, when the call was made for Startup India, nobody understood whether it was meant to be started up or meant to be stood up. And therefore, the world is ready to be led by India. And the question is, are we ready to lead? Seeing the confidence of these bright brains sitting in this room, I dare take and gather the courage to say, yes, we are ready. We are ready to take the challenge. We are ready to avail of the opportunity. And today, on the occasion of National Science Day, we take the first step by significantly and also symbolically launching the Web Hub Fellowship Scheme for the Indian diaspora abroad, our bright, young, and not so young scientific minds abroad, to be encouraged, to be promoted, to be motivated, to collaborate with the domestic brains over here for a much, much more wholesome growth. And this Web Hub stands for Vaishvik Bharatiya Vigyanik. Vaishvik hokar ke bhi Bharatiya. So global perspective for the cause of India. Being again collaborated with what remains to be Indian. And from here, we move on to embark on the journey of next 25 years. And I have the confidence to say, those of us who are around at that time, 25 years hence, will realize that India's scientific prowess will determine India's future economy and will also determine the contours of the face of India as it appears in the year 2047. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, best wishes.
Thank you, sir. You dwelled upon something that's really close to my heart, Jai Vigyan, and how the Indian startups are aggressively taking on forward Web3, AR, VR, AI, and Holo into the global media and scoring over all the global media and the global startups. So Jai Vigyan for India, thank you for your very inspiring words. You've always been a stellar figure and we feel very encouraged and motivated by your presence today. May I now request Dr. S. Chandrasekhar, sir, to please present to Honorable Minister a token of our appreciation. Sir. I now request Secretary Dr. S. Chandrasekhar to please present a token of appreciation to Dr. A.K. Sood. We will be continuing this program after only a short break of 5 minutes. But before that, and after that, something really interesting coming up, a lecture you cannot miss by Professor K. Vijay Raghavan. But before that, a group photograph to remember this historic occasion today. I invite on stage Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, Senior Advisor DST, Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director Vigyan Prasad, Dr. Rashmi Sharma, Scientist F, DST, to please join us for a group photograph with the Honorable Minister to etch this in the annals of history, 28th February 2023. And all the awardees, yes.
Just want to listen the lecture also. You can continue lecture last time for the vote of thanks.
Namaste, sir.
Secretary.
PMO to also please join us. It'll be wonderful for the awardees to have you, sir. Sir, request you to please join us. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We now have a very important lecture by Professor K. Vijay Raghavan, former Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. जैसा कि हम सभी जानते हैं, ग्लोबल साइंस फॉर ग्लोबल वेलबींग 2023 की थीम है. मैं अनुरोध करूंगी आपसे, राघवन सर. I request you all to please clap, and I request Honorable Vijay Raghavan ji to please join us at the lectern. Thank you, sir.
You have my slides loaded? Mananiya Mantri ji, Namaskar. Principal Scientific Advisor, Dr. A.K. Sood, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Dr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. Mohanty, Secretaries to the Departments of Science and Technology seated here, Biotechnology, Earth Sciences, former secretaries, award winners, and most of all the young students over here. I'll be very brief because I stand between you and a very well-deserved lunch. You've already heard about the importance of the National Science Day and also from the Mantri ji about the directions our science and technology are taking. The broad topic for today's theme is global science and well-being. And the question is, which are the many areas of this broad theme that one can focus on? there are many, many important areas: climate change, agriculture, health, and so on. And today I'll talk briefly about the brain in health and illness. Now, this is a topic which is very important for all of us as the population of the world has grown and as our physical well-being has allowed people to survive up to a ripe old age. The question is, how does this affect our mental health, both in terms of the stresses and strains of modern life, infectious disease, lifestyle diseases, and diseases of aging? How do I change this? Yes, oops, sorry. So this is my topic about how the brain is important in well-being. And this is a picture of our brain. And if you look at the brain, it has over 86 billion nerve cells. And trying to understand how these nerve cells are put together in complex circuits and how they function in health and disease and treat disease and ill health is a very, very major challenge. Now, here is an example of a brain which is infected by a tapeworm. And here is an example also of how technology can treat this. Before CAT scans and MRIs came up, epileptic seizures caused by neurocysticercosis, the tapeworm infection when cysts form in the brain, were not easy to diagnose and distinctly look at it from other kinds of epilepsy. But the availability of extraordinary science and technology allowed this to happen. And this is something which is a remarkable advance of science and technology. Before that, you had to rely on pathology for finding out this disease. The pathology of this disease was discovered when a soldier from a Welsh regiment in Karnataka, Mysore at that time, went back to Wales and found that he had epileptic seizures, and after some time, his family members also started getting epileptic seizures. And then when some of them died, the pathology became clear. Now, people with epileptic seizures, one can do an MRI or a CAT scan and figure out whether the epilepsies are caused by this, and there are treatments available. So this is rather remarkable. Now, there are other diseases which we don't know the etiology. There are some inherited forms of those diseases. There are others which are environmental, and these are Parkinson's disease as an example, and how drugs, therefore, which are used to treat these diseases often treat the symptoms and can ameliorate the symptoms. Yet, we have a big challenge here because these drugs, after some time, the body becomes resistant to it and new drugs are needed. And it's not clear how one can treat only the areas of the brain which are affected and not treat the whole body, and because there are other kinds of side effects which are also there. Now, if understanding the brain of 86 billion cells, nerve cells, and there are many more other kinds of cells, is a challenge, we are faced with another kind of a problem, because even a very simple cell, like a bacterial cell shown here, is a very big challenge in understanding how it functions. This cell can sense sugars, can sense carbon sources, and it can shake and move its flagella, which you can see, and respond to this. And we know beautifully how each of these kinds of signals are integrated and how it works, and that is shown in this diagram here. But we know rather little of how multiple signals at the same time can have an effect on this organism and have a predictive, and whether we can predict what will happen. So we know here, for example, that sugars are sensed, they are processed inside the sensory signals, and then the flagella turns in one way or the other to go towards the sugar, right? But if there are other kinds of phenomena which are sensed, like temperature, acidity, and so on at the same time, then how does the bacterium respond is a very complex task, which even for a single cell, people have not been able to easily understand. And the challenge is, how can you understand it for 86 billion cells? So there must be some simplifying areas to do that, and then to also treat diseases like I mentioned. So bacteria, even though they are single cell organisms, they can talk to each other and behave as a community and signal to each other. And that indeed is much the same way in multiple cells in our body also talk. So we have a lot to learn from bacteria and apply that to complex cells such as ours. Now let me very briefly point out that, when you look at these kinds of complexities, biologists ask only three questions. Where does it come from? And that is evolution. How is it made? That's developmental biology. And how does it function? That's physiology. And when it is not working, how do you fix it? That's the fourth question. That's medicine. So, first of all, where does it come from? If you look at planet Earth and our life forms, about 3.5 billion years ago, life started. And you can read for yourself that about 1 billion years ago, multicellular forms of life came about. So that took a long time. The universe itself is about 13.5 billion years ago, and the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. So many billions of years after the universe was formed, the Earth was formed, and then life was formed, and then multicellular organisms were formed. Then later on, up to about, from 600 million years, with simple animals coming, and with insects and seeds coming about 400 million years ago, dramatic life forms came about. And then, 130 million years ago, you had flowering plants and pollination taking place in a very big way. Mammals came about 200 million years ago. But something rather dramatic happened relevant to earth sciences and life sciences about 65 million years ago. An asteroid crashed near what is now Mexico and wiped out all the dinosaurs. That allowed mammals, which were very small and not dominant at all, to become a dominant radiation on our planet. And that wiping out resulted in the growth of other forms, largely mammals, and dominating the Earth. And about 2.5 million years ago, our ancestors, Homo erectus and so on, came about. And it's only 25,000 years since our close relatives, the Neanderthals, died out, with whom humans mated, with Neanderthals and Denisovans. So it is a major accident, a cosmic accident, which resulted in the growth of mammalian radiation and other evolutionary pressures which resulted in humans coming about. So this is rather dramatic. Now, in this situation, we can ask the following question. Since we have now looked at where did it come from, and it came from this evolutionary process. But one important point here, that means all of evolution has a shared chemistry because it has a shared origin. And that shared chemistry is connected through the thread of DNA. And therefore, because there's a shared chemistry connected through the thread of DNA, you can understand any life form on Earth by studying any other life form on Earth. And this is a very important lesson. At the Indian Agricultural Research Institute in Pusa many years ago, R.P. Sharma and V.K. Chopra discovered in an undergraduate classroom doing Drosophila fly genetics a gene called wingless. Wingless later on, this is in an agricultural institute, and wingless turned out to be a critical gene in both development of our bodies and in terms of what it, when mutated, causes cancers. So here is an example of how an undergraduate genetics lab can have an extraordinary impact on the world of cancer research by studying a fruit fly in an agricultural institute. So these are the serendipities of science. The next question we can ask is, how is it made? From after we ask, where did it come from? And there are very simple rules, and I'll very briefly tell you this. The toolkit for making any animal is the same no matter whether it is worm or human. And it is like saying that if you have a screwdriver, nuts and bolts and rivets and bending metal and so on, you can make either a motor scooter or you can make an aeroplane, right? You just need to have the map of what you need to do when and use these tools to make different kinds of products. And that's exactly what happens in animal development. To make a fly or to make a human, you require the same kinds of toolkits, and those toolkits are very simple ones. They are kits which make a group of cells different from each other. They do it by having the daughter cells, when one cell becomes two, different from each other because of their parentage. Components are distributed asymmetrically. Or cells talk to each other over short and long range. Or cells inhibit or attract each other. So these broad principles are used in molecular terms again and again in every organism and made it. And here again is an example of how studying one organism can help another organism. And therefore you have model organisms, mice and monkeys and ferrets and worms and flies to understand human disease. And that's made great advances. And the molecular organization shown in this slide, on the top is a fly, and the expression of genes is very similar to that in human and mouse in many of the high-end toolkit genes. Now, how do you make the brain? And this again is a general principle. You have a stem cell, and that stem cell divides to give rise to another stem cell and a cell which makes two nerve cells. And those nerve cells then go and connect, and they can go up to several meters, for example, in motor nerves. So renewal of stem cells makes a brain, and if you want to make a small number of cells or a small brain, you divide the stem cells only a few times. If you have to make a large brain, you divide many, many times. And because you know where you're making these cells, because of the spatial organization across the animal, each stem cell, whether it is in the head, on the thorax, or abdomen, is different and makes the nervous system in your brain or in your spinal cord. Apart from where you make it and how you make it this way, timing is also important. And if you time at the cells at different stages, you get more diversity. So by having stem cells which proliferate, by choosing where you make it, and by deciding when you make it, you make extraordinary diversity and large number of cells. So look how, while we thought it was extraordinarily difficult to understand a brain compared to a bacterium, it turns out that there are many simplifying features which allow you to study how things are made, which therefore allows you to look at complexity even though there are very large number of cells. So this is the beauty of these common simplifying features. So we've heard about where things come from and how they are made, how do they work, and that's physiology. And that physiology, again, because of these simplifying features and evolution, turns out to be decipherable by studying some organisms, which are very special. For example, here is a giant squid, and by studying the insides of a nerve cell in this giant squid, a giant neuron it's called, Hodgkin and Huxley figured out how the action potential, how nerve cells send signals from one end to another, is made. And this is a beauty of modeling because they did electrophysiology and figured out what are the kinds of ion channels which pump sodium and potassium in and out of the cell and chloride. And this resulted in the discovery of these challenge molecules later on, which are very, very important in many kinds of diseases. The dysfunctional or the lack of function or the excess function of nerve cells can cause many kinds of disease. Now that was for one cell, and again we have a problem, and here is an example of a part of the brain, of the cerebellum, where there are cells called the Purkinje cells. These are beautiful cells. On the left is a picture by Santiago Ramon Cajal, who observed them in a very primitive microscope and drew them, and this on the right is looking at them through what is called a laser scanning confocal microscope. While we understood how one nerve cell functions, here we are looking at how 20 million nerve cells are present. Can we hope to understand that? And there's amazing technology available now which allows us to visually see the function of hundreds and thousands of nerve cells at a time while looking at their connectivity and function so that we can start trying to understand the language of the brain, the cerebellum and other higher parts of the brain and how they work. Brain cells are also connected with each other, and this is a picture of this connectivity. I told you there are 86 billion nerve cells in the brain. There are about several trillion synapses in the brain, connectivities. So there too, physiology helps us to understand chemical contribution and how that connectivity translates to communication between cells, and extraordinary advances are being made there. And therefore, going back to the examples I gave you of Parkinson's and other diseases, while interventions at early stages were just hit and trial, today increasingly those interventions are focused on how one can look at therapies in specific parts of the brain and using specific kinds of chemical interventions. And these kinds of interventions are possible at one end of the nerve cell, where there's genetic information there, how it interacts with the environment, and how it goes to the other end. Now, to know this on a large scale is a very big challenge. And for that, you need to understand the anatomy of the brain. And scientists for a long time have found out which parts of the brain dominantly respond to which kinds of external cues. There are areas which are important for motor function, others for visual function, and these talk to each other, and those areas also do multiple things. So by looking at where potential damage is and where connectivity and what are the kinds of chemicals involved in specific parts of the brain, you can again decipher the complexity of the brain and see what happens. So this is a understanding goes from human behavior, pathology, imaging, and links to fundamental neuroscience, which comes from other organisms. Now, let me end very soon by saying that people have managed to look at some animals. This is the brain of a fruit fly, where instead of 86 billion nerve cells, there are just 20,000 cells. And scientists have managed to look at the connectivity of every single nerve cell with every other nerve cell. This is an amazing achievement. And how do they do that? They take fine electron microscopy images across the brain and then align them and draw a connectivity map. Now, even if you make the slightest error in alignment, you'll get a wrong map. And therefore, ground truthing using computers and undergraduate students and school students in hundreds of numbers were important to generate this kind of a map. And this is absolutely stunning, and you can get these kinds of pictures by school students and college students working with top scientists and top technology to generate this map. And so now we know each of these 20,000 cells, how they collect. This is one nerve cell and its ramifications, but we know it for all the nerve cells because it's a team effort. Now, the principle, and this is the quality of the team effort. Without that effort, on the left, you will get this kind of a very crude nerve cell. On the right, what you get is after the proofreading. So this is a citizen science effort at a highest level of understanding artificial intelligence, computer science, and biology. And students and graduate students who have done this kind of work get top jobs in the top places all over the world. And this is something which now needs to be embarked on for other organisms, including human and mouse. Now, if this takes several years, 5 to 10 years to do with current technology with hundreds of people, how long will it take to do a mouse brain? At the current rate of technology of the electron microscopy and the data analysis, it will take about 1,000 years to do a mouse brain. But if the technology improves, which it can by 10-fold and 100-fold, if the kinds of ways by which you can use computer science to analyze improves by 100-fold, and if the numbers of people involved from places like India come up, you should aim, instead of 1,000 years to do a mouse brain, do it in a year or 2 or 5 years or something like that. That is a big challenge in neuroscience, and that will help greatly in disease analysis. A human brain will, of course, be much more complicated, but there are some extraordinary efforts going on in India. At the National Brain Research Center in Delhi, linked with the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, epilepsy and other diseases are being studied and linked to anatomy and physiology. At the National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience, there's a great program going on in collaboration, which has for many years a brain bank. This is in collaboration with the National Center for Biological Sciences of the Tata Institute, out of the Department of Atomic Energy, where Mantriji is a minister. And they are collaborating in making stem cells from patients who have different disorders compared to normal people and seeing how at the cellular level there are dysfunctions. And Chris Gopalakrishnan, a philanthropist, has funded a Center for Brain Research in Bangalore and one at IIT Madras. The IIT Madras one is looking at slices of brain samples and trying to establish connectivity at a crude level. So India is well poised to take off at human brain studies as well as with a tradition of strong studies in neurobiology and neurophysiology to address these kinds of questions. Is the human brain special? I'll end here. We know that there are 86 billion neurons. We're much more than other rodents and primates in terms of size normalized, but we don't know how many neurons, for example, there are in an African elephant. The suspicion right now is that humans have more nerve cells, but the African elephant, which has a much larger brain size, largest amongst the mammals now, probably has more non-neuronal cells, glial cells. So it seems like, at a first approximation, that the numbers of nerve cells are what makes us special, but that remains to be studied. So this is again an exciting area. So I'd like to stop here in the interest of time. I'll just point out that there are enormous complexities in biology, from a bacterial cell to the brain, and understanding complexity at every level, both theoretical levels and how organization takes place despite the complexity. That's what Professor Sood studies. And how at practical levels this complexity is reflected in biology of all kinds is something very, very exciting. The human brain is amazing. It's not only managed to survive on this planet like other animals. We have moved from being, it changes the planet. We have moved from being on the planet of the apes to making the planet of the apps. And this is a dramatic change. We have created computers, we have created artificial intelligence, and the big challenge now going forward is how we can live with machines and machines can live with us. Thank you very much.
Many thanks for those insights, sir. Indeed, a true celebration of National Science Day. That speech made me overawed. I now request Professor A.K. Sood, Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, to present a token of appreciation to Dr. Vijay Raghavanji. And I request our very Honorable Minister to also join in for the picture. I now request Dr. M. Mohanty, Head NCSTC DST, to present the word of thanks.
A very good afternoon to all. Honorable Minister, Science and Technology, respected Principal Scientific Advisor, Professor A.K. Sood, ex-Principal Scientific Advisor, Professor Vijay Raghavan, Secretary DST. On behalf of NCST Division, I would like to congratulate all the award winners for this NCSTC awards as well as our prizes. I am glad to be standing here to express my vote of thanks. A special thank to our Chief Guest, Honorable Minister, Science and Technology, Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, for accepting our invitation, for being here with us today. Sir, I know you had a lot of appointments today. You cancel all other appointments and you make it possible to have this function here. Your thoughts have truly inspired us and will carry forward the same to make India as self-independent as well as Atmanirbhar Bharat. I thank respected Principal Scientific Advisor, Professor Ajay K. Sood, for accepting our invitation. I know, sir, you have made a program with NASI and other academies in spite of fact that you make it possible. And also Professor Vijay Raghavan for delivering the National Science Day lecture. Sir, you accepted our invitation and came from Bangalore. We are very much thankful to you. My sincere thanks to our mentor, our secretary, Dr. Chandrasekhar, for his continuous support and guidance, without which the program could not have been successful. I would also like to thank the respected secretaries from other departments, Professor Gokhale, Professor from Department of Biotechnology and Secretary, Department of Art Sciences, who have accepted our invitation and came here in spite of their busy schedule. I would be failing in my duty if I don't thank our fellow awardees, prize winners who have come from different parts of the country to attend this function. I would also like to specially thank the expert committee members who have selected the awards as well as the winner and prizes for this award. I will like thank each and everyone, including media persons, students, and teachers for being here, making this day a successful, wonderful, and memorable to all. But last, but not the least, I would like to thank the organizer and staffs of Vigyan Prasar and my own colleagues from NCT Division and colleagues from DST, Department of Science and Technology, and staffs who have made this event very successful, arranging all these event arrangement and making it successful. Thank you once again. Thank you all.
And thank you, sir. And to add to what you said, I'd like to also thank media partners who are joining us for live streaming this event, schools, icons, and many others. Thank you so much. May I request all of you now to please rise for the national anthem. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Jai Vigyan.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
I now request all our esteemed dignitaries and all of you a very happy Science Day, and I request you to join us for lunch. Thank you. Namaste, Jai Hind.